Hello Magic players and welcome back to Kaladesh. Today we're going to be looking at Atarka, the World Render, a personal deck of mine. I started it way back in 2015 January on the release of Fate Reforged, and it's had multiple rebuilds, tweaks ever since, and this is how it currently sits. I can't honestly say it's a dragon tribal deck, but obviously it does lean heavily into the dragons themselves. So let's take a look. So, as always, we're going to start off with the land. We have 12 basic forests, 12 basic mountains, and then 13 non-basic other lands, ranging from the Crag Crown Pathway, that's a lovely MDF land there. Obviously, it comes in as your choice of either. Crucible of the Spirit Dragon, you can pay 1 to put storage counter on it. Remove X storage counters from Crucible of Spirit Dragon to add X mana in any combination of colours to your mana pool. Spends mana only to cast dragon spells or activate abilities of dragons. And of course just taps for colourless as well. Obviously really an essential card in any dragon deck. Evolving Wilds of course. Firelit Thicket, which gives you those options if you are running low on one particular colour. Gruul Turf, always a nice bounce land. Haven of the Spirit Dragon, again another essential one in any dragon deck in my opinion. Tap for a colourless, tap to add 1 mana of any colour to spend only on a dragon creature, or pay 2 and tap to sacrifice it, return target dragon creature or Ugin Planeswalker from your graveyard to your hand. Trust me, you're going to be needing that bit. Myriad Landscape of course, which just finds 2 basic lands and put them into play. Rogue's Passage, one of the win cons in this deck already. Good way to make Atarka unblockable. Fast, aggressive combat commander damage. Rootbound Crag. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a mountain or a forest, and obviously it can be tapped for either. Rugged Highlands, a good old classic. Enters tapped, when you do, gain a life. Stomping Grounds. Good old shotland here. It's a mountain forest. There we go. As it enters, you can pay 2 life to have it untapped. If not, just enter tapped. Obviously, it's nice you can search this with a lot of your land grab spells. Terramorphic Expense, of course. And, as always, the essential command tower. I am running a total of 28 creatures, 10 enablers or helpers. So with the Dragon Speaker Shaman for 2 red and 1, sorry. You get a 2/2 and your dragon spells are going to cost you 2 less to cast. Always useful. Dragon Master Outcast is a 1 red for a 1/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 6 or more lands, you can put a 5/5 red dragon creature token flying onto the battlefield. Obviously incredibly useful. He is going to get targeted and picked off, so try not to cast him until you get to that stage, so you know next turn you can at least get 1 dragon out of him. Dragon Lord Servant, very similar to the first goblin. 1 and a red, 1/3, and your dragon spells are 1 less to cast. Dragon Whisperers, 2 red. It's a 2/2 human shaman. You can pay 1 to give it flying till end of turn, 1 and a red to give it +1/+0. And Formidable, for 4 and 2 red, you can put a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying onto the battlefield. You can only activate that ability if your creatures have total power 8 or greater. Draconic Disciples, a nice little mana ramper. Add 1 mana of any colour for 1 a red and a green. He's a 2/2. A nice benefit being able to pay 7 to sacrifice him to create a 5/5 red dragon. Always useful in the later game. Xenagos himself, the God of Revels. He's a legendary enchantment creature god, 6/5 indestructible. His devotion has to be 7 to become creature. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gains haste and +X/+X, where X is that creature's power. So as you probably guessed, another one of the win cons in this deck. hit Atarka with this, she becomes a 12-6. No, something. 12 damage anyway. Double strike when it hits. 24 command damage, 1 hit, they're out. Archetype of aggression, 2 red and 1, to give all your creatures trample, and remove trample from everybody else's. A lovely Nyx Bloom Ancient, 4 and 3 green, it's 5/5 trample, but let's be honest, if you attack with this, you're either desperate or they've got nothing in defense and all their mana tapped. If you tap a permanent for mana, it produces 3 times as much of that mana instead. Zurza Druid, 1 red, 1 green for a 1/1, tap to add 1 green. However, when you do, it's going to deal 1 damage to each opponent. The amount of damage this little beauty has caused over the years is absolutely wonderful. And a Vexing Shusher to shush all you blue players out there. It's either a combination of red and green for 2. It can't be countered, and you can pay 1 red or green to make target spell uncounterable. Always a massive, massive problem I had to start off with in this deck, with blue and white control. Ugh. Personally, not a fan. If you play that, ugh, good on you. So, on to the dragons. We have the Lord of All, Terror of the Peaks, of course. 5/4 trample, that flying. Spells your opponents cast at the target Terror of the Peaks will cost them an additional 3 life, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, he's going to deal damage equal to that creature's power to any target. An essential dragon. Skyline Despot is a 5/2 red 5/5 flyer. When it enters, you can become the Monarch, one of the lovely little card draw abilities. And if you're the Monarch, you get a 5/5 red dragon creature on your upkeep. Scourge of Alcas for 2 and 3 red, 4/4 flyer. When it enters, it's going to deal X damage to target creature or player, where X is the number of dragons you control. Obviously, it's going to ping off every time another dragon enters as well. And he's got simple pumping, 1 red for +1/+0 until end of turn. Scourge of the Throne. Should be familiar with this one if you've watched any of my other videos. It's at 4 and 2 red, 5/5 flyer with dethrone. So whenever it attacks the player with the most life, it gets a +1/+1 counter. And when it does attack the foe with the most life, you untap all your creatures and you get an additional combat phase. Savage Ventmore is a rather underrated card. For a red and a green, you get a 4/4 flyer, but whenever it does attack, you're going to add 3 red and 3 green to your mana pool that doesn't empty. So obviously, one swing with this triggers with a lot of different abilities in my deck, as you'll probably see. Nesting Dragon's a beautiful one. 3 and 2 red, you get a 5/4 flyer with landfall. So whenever you get a land enter the battlefield, you're going to create yourself a 0/2 dragon egg, which when it dies, you're going to create a 2/2 red dragon with flying and pumping. 1 red, +1/+0 until end of turn. The beautiful Leyline Tyrant, favourite of mine. 2 and 2 red for a 4/4 flyer, and you're not going to lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end. So basically it's going to collect any unspent mana, and when it dies you can pay any amount of red. When you do, it's going to deal that much to any target. Hellkite Tyrant is a disgusting little wing-gun all on its own. For 4 and 2 red, you're going to get a 6/5 flying trample. When it does combat damage to the player, you're going to gain control of all artifacts that player controls. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 20 or more, you're going to win the game. Hellkite Courser is 4 and 2 red for a 6/5 flyer. As it enters, you can put the commander you own from your command zone onto the battlefield. It gains haste, be able to return it at the beginning of the end step. Obviously, your commander is going to get targeted a hell of a lot, giving all of your dragons double strike. So eventually, it's going to get rather too costly to bring out all on its own. This is just nice. It's going to bring the target back onto the field, even just for 1 more turn. This might be all you need to win out that game. Hellkite Charger is 4 and 2 red for a 5/5 flyer of haste. And of course, whenever it attacks, you can pay 5 and 2 red. If you do, untap all attacking creatures, and after that, you get an additional combat phase. And obviously, this one works beautifully with the Savage Ventmore, because if you can repeatedly attack with Event War, you're only going to be paying 1 additional mana for each combat phase. The lovely Furyborn Hellkite is a rather costly 4 and 3 red mana for a 6/6 flyer, but it does have Bloodthirst 6, so obviously if an opponent has been dealt damage this turn, it's going to run over 6 +1/+1 counters on it. Combine that with Atarka, that's a disgusting 24 damage just from one. Lathless Dragon Queen is 4 and 2 red. She's a 6/6 flyer, and whenever another non-token dragon enters the battlefield under your control, you're going to create a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying. Obviously, this works beautifully in any dragon deck, and combos perfectly with Terror of the Peaks. So you bring in a dragon, Terror of the Peaks is going to trigger to that, deal some damage, but then of course it's going to cause another 5/5 to enter the battlefield, which will hit another 5 from your Terror of the Peaks. Also, Lathless can give all your dragons +1/+0 until end of turn with only 1 and 1 red. The other incarnation of Atarka is Dragonlord Atarka, 5 a red and a green, 8/8 flying trample, and as it enters the battlefield it's going to deal 5 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers your opponents control. I have toyed and tried having this one as the commander instead, but I had to be honest with myself, while this is much more powerful when it comes to attacking, that double strike on all dragons really is a game changer. Utvara Hellkite is next for a costly again, shocker, dragons. 6 and 2 red. It's a 6/6 flyer, and whenever a dragon you control attacks, you're going to create a 6/6 red dragon creature token with flying. Again, works beautifully with Terror of the Peaks. Tyrant's Familiar is 5 and 2 red, flying haste 5/5 with Lieutenant. So as long as you control your commander, it's going to get +2/+2, so become a 7/7. And whenever it attacks, it's going to hit any creature the defending player controls for 7 damage. Get rid of those pesky problems. Thunderbreak Regent is a lovely dragon for only 2 and 2 red for a 4/4 flyer. But whenever a dragon becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, it's going to deal 3 damage to that player. A lot of things for just 4 mana. Slumbering Dragon is a nice dragon's way of having a propaganda. So for 1 red mana, you're going to get a 3/3 flyer. However, it can't attack or block unless it has 5 or more +1/+1 counters on it. But then whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, you're going to put a +1/+1 counter on the Slumbering Dragon. So if your opponent swings 3 creatures at you, 3 +1/+1 counters. So you can see what I mean. It's a good deterrent, stopping people to attack you in the early phase when you're still trying to get your mana base up and get these bigger bad boys on the field. And last dragon is the Skyship Stalker. So 2 and 2 red. She's a 3/3 flyer. Pay 1 red to give her +1/+0 until end of turn. Pay 1 red to give her first strike. Or pay 1 red to give her haste until end of turn. Great in the early stage, and always nice having so many options for quite a cheap price as well. Moving on to artifacts, I run 12 in this one. Starting things off, we have the Dragon Throne of Tarkir. Equipped creature has Defender and pay 2 and tap. Other creatures you control are going to gain Trample and +X/+X until end of turn, where X is that creature's power. So obviously the combination of this with Atarka, and let's say for example the Furyborn Hellkite, equip this, all your creatures will get +12/+12 and Trample until end of turn. So obviously a bit of a game changer, can win a lot of rounds, that one can. The Boa Nylia is always nice, for 2 green and 1. All your attacking creatures are going to gain Death Touch. You can pay 1 and a green to choose one, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, deal 2 damage to target creature with flying, gain 3 life, or put 4 target cards from your graveyard on the bottom of your library in any order. So many options, absolutely brilliant card. Whisper Silk Cloak is another little wing-on. Obviously equip this onto Atarka herself for only 3, equip for 2, equipped creature can't be blocked, and her Shroud. So obviously straight away, 2 turns of hitting with that, can't be blocked, death. Thaumatic Compass is an absolutely beautiful card. So for 2, you're going to get an artifact where you can pay 3 to tap and search library for a basic land, reveal it, put it in your hand, shuffle your library. Then if your end step, if you control 7 or more lands, transform the Thaumatic Compass into the Spires of Atarka. So you can tap for a colourless, or untap target attacking creature an opponent controls and remove it from combat. It's obviously very similar to the Maze of Ith and other similar cards, but just nice as a deterrent, again, to be able to remove the most pesky problem as it comes to you. Shocker, it's a Soul Ring. One of my favourite cards of all time, Mirage Mirror. For 3, you're going to get an artifact where you can pay 2, and it's going to become a copy of target artifact, creature, enchantment, or land until end of turn. This is so underrated in my opinion. So underrated. Should go in every single deck. It doesn't matter if you've got something to copy or not. It's what your opponents have as well. A rather lucky pull by me. I got the Jeweled Lotus. It's a 0-drop artifact where you can tap to sack it to add 3 mana of any one colour, but they can only be cast on your commander. And obviously, if you're lucky enough to be able to get this early enough on the game, you better get your commander out super fast. Brilliant. Because she can kill in only 2 hits, and there's not much in the early game that's going to be able to stop her, to be honest. Hedron Archive is just a nice little ramp for 4. You're going to tap to add 2, or you can pay 2, tap and sack to draw 2 cards. Gruul Closestone, just a basic mana rock. For 3, you can tap for 1 red or green, or you can pay a red and a green, tap and sack to draw a card. Dragon's Hoard is a lovely, lovely artifact. So for 3, whenever a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, you can put a gold counter on it. You can tap to remove a gold counter and draw a card, or tap for 1 mana of any colour. Draw and mana one. Dowsing Dagger is a 2 to cast artifact equipment. As it enters the battlefield, target opponent is going to create 2/0/2 green plant creature tokens with Defender. The equipped creature is going to get +2/+1. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may transform Dowsing Dagger. You're probably going to want to. So it turns into a Lost Veil. You can tap to add 3 mana of any one colour to your mana pool. Obviously, it's not the best situation to give your opponents Defenders, but if you can attach this to a little cheap flyer, lovely way to get around those plans you're giving them. And of course, a Commander Sphere. Tap for 1 mana of any colour in your commander's identity, or sacrifice to draw a card. I run 4 Planeswalkers. We're going to start things off with Vivian Reed. She's 3 and 2 green, 5 loyalty. You can look at the top 4 cards of your library for +1. May reveal a creature or land from among them. Put it into your hand and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. -3, you can destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. And then her ultimate, for -8, you're going to get an emblem with creatures you control, get +2/+2, vigilance, trample, and indestructible. If you're lucky enough to be able to pull that off, surely the win. Sarkhan the Masterless is 3 and 2 red for 5 loyalty. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you can control, each dragon you control is going to deal 1 damage to that creature. +1, until end of turn, each planeswalker you control is going to become a 4/4 red dragon creature and gains flying. And -3, you're going to create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. Garruk Unleashed is 2 and 2 green, 4 loyalty, +1, up to 1 target creature gets +3/+3 and trample until end of turn. -2, you're going to create a 3/3 green beast creature token. Then if an opponent has more creatures than you, put a loyalty counter back on him. And his ultimate is -7, you get an emblem with at the beginning of your end step. You may search your library for a creature card and put it on the battlefield. Obviously shuffle your library afterwards. Beautiful ability there. And Xenagos the Reveler. He's 2 a red and a green. He's got 3 loyalty when he comes in. You can +1 to add X mana in any combination of red and or green to your mana pool, where X is the number of creatures you control. For 0, you can put a 2/2 red and green Satyr token onto the battlefield with haste. And -6, you can exile the top 7 cards of your library, and you may put any number of creatures and or lands from among them straight onto the battlefield. So obviously brilliant for ramp, getting that extra mana early on in the game if you manage to get them for that. Extra for creatures, and being able to cheat all that stuff out when you ultimate him. Lovely. Almost there. I'm getting on to enchantments. Only run just the 5. So we've got Crucible of Fire, 3 and a red. Dragons are going to get +3/+3. Elemental Bond is a nice draw engine for 2 and a green. Whenever a creature with power 3 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you're going to draw. Frontier Siege is useful in both ways for this one. So for 3 and a green, you choose Khans or Dragons. If I get this early on, I'll generally choose the Khans so I can get the mana ramp with 2 green per mana phase. If I get it late game, I'll generally try and choose the Dragons, so whenever a creature with flying enters the battlefield under your control, you may have a fight target creature you don't control. Garruk's Uprising is 2 and a green. As it enters the battlefield, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. You can give all your creatures trample, and whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card. And lastly, Sight of the Scale Lords is 4 and a green. At the beginning of combat on your turn, creatures you control with toughness 4 or greater are going to get +2/+2 and vigilance until end of turn. So obviously you could be dishing out a lot of damage. It's nice to be able to do something to give yourself some defense still, even if you do want to swing out entirely every single combat phase. We're running just 4 instants. Spit Flame is 2 and a red for 4 damage to target creature. However, when a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay a red to return it from your graveyard to your hand. Some nice recurable little ping damage. The best spell in all of Magic is a Lightning Bolt. For 1 red mana, you can deal 3 damage to target creature or player. Sarkhan's Triumph for 2 and a red is going to let you search your library for a dragon, reveal it, put it on your hand, and then shuffle your library. And of course, Heroic Intervention, 1 and a green. Permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Save against those horrible board wipes or kill spells that are sure to be coming your way if you play this deck. And then lastly, we've got 9 sorceries. Clan Defiance is X, a red and a green. You choose 1 or more, and let's be honest, who wouldn't choose more? It's going to deal X to target creature with flying, X to target creature without flying, and X to target player. Mizian Mortars is 1 and a red for a sorcery which deals 4 damage to target creature you don't control. But for overload costs, 3 and 3 red, it's going to deal 4 damage to each creature you don't control. I'm not going to obviously board wipe, but it's certainly going to help out, especially against like token decks. Banefire is X and a red for X damage to target creature or player, but if it's 5 or more, it can't be countered and the damage can't be prevented. The very old school Disintegrate, X and a red, destroy, or does X damage to 1 target. If target dies this turn, it is removed from the game entirely. Ooh, exiled. Cultivate, Essential Land Grab. Search live for 2 basic land cards, reveal them, 1 on the battlefield, 1 in your hand. Explosive Vegetation is going to search for 2, put them both on the battlefield tapped, for only 3 and a green. Grow from the Ashes, one of my favourite land grabs. 2 and a green will let you search for a basic land, put it on the battlefield. Not even tapped, shuffle your library. However, you can kicker it for 2 to let you search for 2 basic lands. So obviously, good at the start of the game, good at the end of the game. Kodama's Reach is going to search for 2 basic lands and put 1 on the battlefield tapped and the other in your hand. So again, very similar to Cultivate. And Map the Wastes, not quite as good as the others. 1 basic land, put on the battlefield tapped, but lets you bolster 1 where you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature with the lowest toughness you control. So that was Atarka. Hope it gives you some ideas for any dragon decks you might be planning or working on yourselves at the moment. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, share if you like what you see. If you don't, let me know. See you all next time.